Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. So first up today, I want to touch on the markets for a second. You're looking at the CNN Fear and Greed Index. You may have seen this before, but what I want to show you is how this has become a pretty good indicator of where the market might be moving in the near term. So if you're not familiar with this number right here, it's the fear index. So if it's 0, that's maximum fear. If it's 100, that would be maximum greed. Right now it's at 15, but let's take a look at where it's been historically. So we're looking at this index over the past year. Now this is actually made up of 7 different fear and greed indicators that track different parts of the market. I don't want to get into it today, but I will link an article below if you want to read more about it. First, let's take a look at November 9th of last year when this number was at 77, the highest greed it has been over the last year. Here we are on the NASDAQ Composite Index, and the yellow line is November 9th. Almost signaling that top. There was about a 2-week run up after that date when the greed index was at its highest, but as you can see, shortly after that, we had a pretty significant drawdown. So now the question becomes, can this index have some predictive power for the bottom of the market? If you look at July 19th, the reading was 14, signaling extreme fear. So the line has been moved to July 19th, and as you can see, it did a decent job of predicting this local bottom, and over the next 2 or so months, the market had a decent run up. Back to the index, looking at this extreme fear reading on October 4th, and once again, moving the line to October 4th, predicting that local bottom pretty well, and over the next month or so, the NASDAQ had another really nice run up. And finally, May 11th, when the index was at an 8, the most fearful the market has been over the last year. So who really knows what the market will now do in the short term? However, I think this could be another useful tool to have in your toolbox when making decisions about your investing strategy. Just a reminder of one of the many ways Tesla is innovating that 99% of people still have no idea about. When Tesla released its Model 3, it had a secret technical edge over the competition, a material called silicon carbide. One of the key parts of an EV is a traction inverter, which takes electricity from the batteries, converts it to a different form, and feeds it to the motors that then turn the wheels. Now, previous iterations of these traction inverters were based on just silicon, and then Tesla goes and changes it up with silicon carbide, made up of silicon and carbon, and it's these traction inverters that are partly responsible for that instant acceleration. ST Microelectronics, the maker of these chips for Tesla, claimed they could increase a vehicle's mileage range up to 10% while saving significant space and weight. And an industry expert said Tesla made this fantastic move. What they did in a year and a half was really amazing. Silicon carbide is more expensive, but now most people are in agreement that the benefits outweigh the costs. Silicon carbide is useful in electronics because they're semiconductors. They can switch between electrical conductors as metals are and insulators as most plastics are. And silicon carbide differs from silicon in that it has a wide band gap, meaning it requires more energy to switch between the two states. Wide band gap, or WBG, semiconductors are advantageous in power electronics because they can move more power more efficiently. So the next time you're discussing Tesla's efficiency or acceleration, be sure to drop silicon carbide on them and see their reaction. In case you see this article floating around, no need to panic. Basically, a cybersecurity researcher found out there's a way using the Bluetooth to hack a Tesla to open a car and start it and potentially drive away. But this is exactly why Tesla has implemented that pin to drive feature so you can avoid having your car stolen. And I want to be clear that this small vulnerability is not just for Tesla, it's basically for many automakers, and there are no reports of any hackers actually using this breach or hack, whatever you want to call it, on Tesla vehicles. And lastly, Tesla has been notified about this, but they essentially said there's really no security risk here. A shopping center in Toronto has now employed 3 Tesla Model Ys for security cars. Now, 3 does seem a bit excessive for a shopping mall. However, there is a Tesla located in the store, and apparently the security team gets a lot of questions about the vehicles that, yes, could ultimately lead to sales. Elon's interview with the All In crew was uploaded. I definitely recommend watching. It was a really enjoyable interview. I was laughing on a few different occasions. He didn't mention too much new information about Tesla, but there were 2 things that I wanted to touch on. First, Elon said that the FSD beta would go from around 100,000 users now to upwards of 1 million by the end of this year, or a 10 10x. Now, no one really knows what to make of this because so far Tesla has only sold in the neighborhood of 2.5 million vehicles cumulatively, and we know it's really only after about 2016 that some of the vehicles have the hardware to actually run FSD. So even if by the end of this year Tesla has then cumulatively delivered around 3.5 million vehicles, having 1 million people in the beta would be about a 29% take rate, which would be a lot higher than most people are expecting. Now, we don't get this official data from Tesla, but Troy, Teslike, and some others have this closer to the 10 to 15% range, depending on geography. Now, in the past, a few years ago, just in America, it did reach around 45% for a time, but it has steadily decreased as far as we can tell. So of course, Tesla has far superior data than we do. However, I wouldn't put too much stock into this. This could be one of those guesstimates from Elon. The point being though, he's confident that toward the end of this year, many more people will have the FSD beta. And one thing about Twitter, there was one point where he said basically the more he looks into the acquisition, the more doubts he has. Right now, the main thrust is trying to determine the number of bots on the platform. Is it 5%? Is it 50%? Or is it 90%? Which obviously changes the game. So some Tesla investors are excited that this might be going south and that they don't want this deal to be done, but far too early to tell how it's going to unfold. Ray for Tesla shared, Tesla battery R&D team in China is recruiting, lists a number of different positions, and then asks the question, is Giga Shanghai going to make 4680 batteries as well? We know that Giga Shanghai is already supplying Giga Berlin with complete battery packs for Berlin-made cars, at least until Berlin can ramp up its local 4680 production. And long term, it seems reasonable to assume that Austin, Berlin, and Shanghai will all be making 4680 cells locally in-house. Tesla has used the Kato Road pilot line to launch the first production line in Austin that could then be used to launch the production line in Berlin later this year, and perhaps Shanghai will follow sometime next year. Shanghai is the battery hub of the world, and we know that most, if not all, of the major battery manufacturers are already working on 4680s, many of which will be going to Tesla. It's also possible that Tesla is working on its own LFP chemistry or LFP cells, as into the future, this becomes a greater percentage of vehicles delivered, reducing Tesla's reliance on nickel and cobalt. And there are only a few positions listed, so it could just be Tesla is expanding its existing operations of 2170 cells and packs, and nothing is really changing, at least not yet. If you're around Austin, keep your eyes open for Starbase Brewing, which did trademark Giga Beer, so yes, this could be related to Elon, but it might not. The brewery is set to open in late May. It was founded by a group of engineers who are passionate about beer and colonizing Mars, but it's not officially affiliated with SpaceX. Genuine question for you. Would you guys consider the Cadillac Lyriq? I think this is a crucial vehicle for GM and Cadillac in that premium SUV segment where the Model Y has so far been dominating. Starting around $63,000 with a range around 312 miles. It's not bad, and I do personally like the styling. Now, I prefer the minimalism of the Tesla interior. However, there's a ton of people who want the dash and who want the button, so I do think this vehicle could sell really well, but what do you guys think? Do any of you guys remember when Tesla was mocked for deciding to make its own seats, which almost no auto manufacturer does? Well, here we have a story that highlights part of why Tesla is doing that. Rivian alleged in a lawsuit filed in March that Commercial Vehicle Group has threatened to stop supplying seats unless Rivian agreed to pay approximately twice the agreed upon price. The suit involves supplies of vehicle components like the driver's seat, the jump seat, and trim used for battery-powered vans that Rivian is making for Amazon. And Rivian alleged in the suit it had fewer than 100 seat packages left for installation and that it faced imminent shutdown of its entire production line for these battery-powered vans. It also claimed that CVG would not allow it to place new orders for additional seat packages at the higher prices. But there's two sides to every story, and CVG has said in the filings it was not contractually obligated to lower the price and only raised it after Rivian submitted multiple engineering and design changes. And Rivian said in the lawsuit there's no alternative supplier for the custom designed seat packages for this electric van, and it could take well over a year for it to find another vendor. So yes, I'd say that Tesla's decision to make its own seats that now many people love and rave about was ultimately a very good decision. However, here is some small but still good news for Rivian, as RJ just bought around $1 million worth of shares. Historically, CEOs or founders buying their own company stock has been a good thing, signaling positive things for the future. And lastly, the 2023 Genesis GV60 has gone on sale today, starting at $60,000. Deliveries will initially be limited to California, Connecticut, New Jersey, and New York, and the performance upgrade will bump you up to $68,900. Both models will have a 77.4 kilowatt hour battery, good for an estimated range of 248 miles for the advanced or 235 miles for the performance. All GV60 buyers will receive 3 years of complimentary 30-minute charging sessions at Electrify America stations. And honestly, please bring on that competition, as I think it would be a great thing for someone to actually push Tesla. That'll do it for today. Please take a second to like the video if you did. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.